Okay, so Draymond Green came out and said that he considers himself to be the greatest defender ever in NBA history. Now, although I think that's a ridiculous claim, I do think that Draymond Green is one of the top 20 best defenders we've ever seen. I mean, you're talking about a guy who comes in at what 6'7", playing power forward, which is incredibly undersized. Seeing as how we seen power forwards at 7 foot, but this dude is at 6'7". I mean, he's able to defend all five positions on the floor at a frequently high level, man. For a guy that can defend that many positions at that high of a level, I do consider him to be one of the top defenders in the NBA today. Definitely top five, I would say. With as little defense as there is nowadays, where teams are averaging 120 points a game, I mean, Draymond is a top five defender. And I would say that I would not be surprised if he was a top 20 defender all time. Obviously, there are some defenders that are just greater than he is, but with his versatility in the era of basketball he plays in, where the game is far more spaced out, where players have freedom of movement, players are faster, players are stronger, players jump higher, they're more athletic, their agility is off the charts. And this is why I can't really have the era talk, because I don't know if Bill Russell would be able to last in the league today. Sure, he was a great defender back in the 60s, but I don't know if he would last today. Just on athleticism alone, man. On athleticism alone, if Bill Russell was to stay the same, I think that he would have had a ridiculously tough time playing today. Now, back in the 60s and the 50s, where, I mean, you had plumbers and fucking insurance guys playing basketball and football and all this other stuff. Like, for real. And the athleticism wasn't as prominent, like how it is nowadays, where players jump off your screen. Talent wasn't like that back then. So when you have what was he, like 6'9"? When you have a 6'9" center, tall, physical black guy playing in a league full of pretty much unathletic white guys, he's gonna dominate, bro. Why do you think Wilt Chamberlain's stats were ridiculous, bro? Why do you think Bill Russell's stats were ridiculous, man? Why do you think Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double, man? Because they were just better than everybody else because of the talent level. And I'm not saying that doesn't make them any less great. They dominated their era. That's great. But to shit on Draymond because he considers himself to be the greatest defender ever, which he's not. But he's definitely a top 25 defender all time. And I just think it's ridiculous not to even consider that a fact.
Currently in ninth place in a loaded Western Conference, but that's not stopping Draymond Green from being confident as ever. This past weekend, Draymond raised eyebrows when he talked about where he ranks as a defender all time. Take a listen here for yourself.
I think I'm the best defender to ever play this game. 100%. That's my opinion. I also think...
And he has to have that belief because I think it's common knowledge nowadays that some of the greatest players of all time had that belief that they were just better. Even if they weren't at that point in their career when they had that belief, they just believed it. They believed they were the best. You ask any wide receiver in the NFL, who's the best receiver in the NFL, they're going to say, well, I am. Any prominent receiver, any prominent running back, quarterbacks are more political, but if you had them in a very honest conversation, they would be honest and they'll say, it's me. I'm the greatest quarterback. I'm the best quarterback. Like, to have that belief in yourself that you are the greatest, that doesn't mean that he actually 100% believes that he's better than every other defender that came before him. But does he believe that he can throw his name in that ring? Sure. I believe that he has that belief. And he should. He should have that because, I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest teams, assembled teams through the draft, definitely one of the greatest assembled teams that we've ever seen, which is the Golden State Warriors. Draymond, if he was not the most important piece, he is one of the most important pieces to that dynasty, because it was a dynasty. I mean, you could say Kevin Durant, you could say Steph Curry, you could say Klay Thompson was, but what Draymond offers on the floor with his playmaking, with his ability to, well, back when he could actually knock down a shot, with his ability to make sure you stay honest on him, which prevented people from double teaming and, rotating and stuff like that. And his ability to defend all 5 positions. Draymond was as valuable on the floor as you could ask anybody to be. And especially in the finals when Steph Curry consistently came up short. I mean, Draymond was very, very, very valuable. And I think the Golden State Warriors were lucky to have him.
I view the game a lot differently than most people view the game. When I look at all the facets that make up the defensive side of the ball, I think I am great in every facet that makes up that side of the ball.
And really, the only thing I can say that you need to be a great defender is effort. Effort trumps pretty much everything else. Sure, you need some intelligence, but we've seen some idiotic people. Look at a JaVale McGee. I mean, JaVale McGee made some pretty slap your forehead, dumbass plays in his career, but he was a terror on the defensive end, and that's because he had the energy, he had the effort, and that's mostly what you need. Now, having an IQ, it helps tremendously, being position oriented, knowing where to be on the floor, knowing how to, making smart plays. A person that embodies that, which I just saw a video on him recently, was Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso is one of the most underrated playmakers I've seen. I mean, that dude is phenomenal when it comes to energy, effort, and IQ. Like, just one of the best. Let's go.
So I think I'm the best defender to ever play in the NBA. I stand by that. I'll put myself up against anyone.
Well, you gotta love the confidence. Shannon, does Draymond have a case?
Yeah, and he should be thrown in jail. They should have put a case on his butt for saying that out loud. Skip, Draymond Green is not a top 20 defender
all time.
That's bullshit. I can't think of 20 players that are as versatile and as impactful on the defensive end as Draymond has been. In the league nowadays, I can't think of it. I can't think of one player. I said one player. I can't think of 20 players that are better than him. I can't do it. You can go back to the 80s. You can go back to the 70s. You can go to the 90s. You can go to the early 2000s. The game is different now, man. When you got a 6'10" power forward who has the athleticism, the speed, the ball handling, the hand-eye coordination, and the floor intelligence of a Ben Simmons, who can transfer from power forward to point guard almost effortlessly. The only thing the dude can't do is shoot. He can't shoot the ball at all. I mean, he can lay it up. But when you're going up against 6'4" guys, when you're 6'10", 6'11", I mean, you can lay the ball up all day. But guys are faster. Guys are stronger. Guys are far more athletic than they used to be. And it takes a special kind of player to be able to play all 5 positions, where players are getting better as time goes on. As far as ability goes, players are getting better, man. So he has an argument, man. I'm sorry. He just does.
All time.
Yeah.
And that's Skip. And the guy that I got in front of Draymond, I didn't put Mr. Russell, Bill Russell. I didn't put Havlicek. I didn't put Clyde Frazier because I didn't see them play.
You didn't put Bill Russell?
I didn't put him because I didn't see
him
him
play.
play.
You got to just do it on reputation, on legend.
Skip,
Go ahead.
Is he better than
Bro, if I go to an all-white neighborhood, I'm about 6 foot, and I'm pretty decent sized. I'm pretty strong, especially in the paint. If I go to an all-white neighborhood full of middle-aged, white guys who can't jump 2 feet off not 2 feet, who can't jump 2 inches off the ground, like, I would look great. Like, I live in a pretty nice neighborhood, so when I used to go to the basketball court before this whole quarantine thing happened, even when I was just like out of shape, out of shape as all hell, I was still doing pretty well out there with a bunch of people that look like they've never played like physical basketball before. And you look decent doing it. So when a Bill Russell, who's played in a league, man, where you don't, like, you're far more talented, you're far more physical, you're far more athletic than anybody else that you're playing against, you're going to dominate the hell out of them. And again, the greatest example you can have is Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain he took advantage, and good for him. He took advantage of playing in a league where there were like less than 20 teams, and the talent wasn't as great as it used to be. I mean, as great as it is now. I say as it used to be. As great as it is now. I believe that if Wilt Chamberlain went up against another 6'11", 7-foot guy who could put the paws on him, he would have had a far different impact. Like if he played today, I think that his career would have been a lot different. His stats would have been a lot different. And you just look, case in point, a 6'9" Bill Russell bodying up a 7-foot Wilt Chamberlain and causing him hell, man. Causing him hell. Like, I just think it would be different. That's all I'm saying.
Keem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Dwight Howard, Dikembe Mutombo, Tim Duncan, and Ben Wallace.
No.
Okay,
yeah, he's not better than any of those guys.
Let's go forward. Dennis Rodman, Kawhi Leonard, Scott.
You know what? He might have an argument over Dikembe Mutombo. Now, I know people like Mutombo, and he has a signature celebration when he blocks shots or whatever. But those kind of guys, like a David Robinson, although they're great defenders, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but they're low post defenders. They're guys that stop shit once it gets to the rim. Draymond is a guy that can defend in a low post, but he can also go out to the perimeter and defend at a high level at the perimeter. And that's what I'm saying. Like this argument has to have context. And when you're defending guys who are faster than you, who are far more athletic than you are, and some people would say that, some of these players are smarter than you are, but I think Draymond is one of the smartest players on the floor every time he steps on the floor. But when it comes to like a LeBron or somebody, sure, I mean, they have you when it comes to the IQ thing, but I'm just saying, Draymond, the type of player he is, he's at a constant disadvantage every time he steps on the floor because he doesn't have the extreme height. I mean, dude is big, man, but I wouldn't say that. I mean, against smaller players, he might be the strongest, but I mean, his effort, his intelligence, his energy, those things make him one of the greatest defenders I've ever seen. But that's just one man's opinion.
Pippen, Kevin Garnett, Bobby Jones. He better than any of those.
I can't believe you put Bobby Jones in there.
I remember Bobby
Thank
Jones.
you. All right.
Okay, let's go guards. If he better than Michael Jordan, Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant, Sidney Moncrief, Michael Cooper, Bruce Bowen, Alvin Robertson.
I will put him above Kobe. I'm sorry. Like, Kobe was a great player. Don't get me wrong. But I think people overestimate his ability a little bit too much, man. They overestimate his impact on the game a little bit too much. Kobe Bryant tried his best. He even tried to look like this dude. He tried to be Michael Jordan way too fucking much. He didn't have the temperament to be a Michael Jordan. He didn't have the efficiency. And when it comes to defense, now I'm not saying he's not a great defender, not a good defender. I'm not saying any of that. But what I'm saying is what Draymond provides on the floor, Kobe could not do. Kobe could not do. People love to throw this dude out. He's the greatest player ever. Kobe could not do. Kobe was very limited as a basketball player. He was a phenomenal shooter. Okay. Sometimes I think that he was so ignorant to the amount of shots that he took that it made people love him. It made people love him. But he wasn't a great shot taker. He was not a great shot selector. And he had a hard time winning without Phil Jackson, without a big man, at least an all-star level big man. And like it or not, all 5 of Kobe's titles came with one dude at point guard, Derek Fisher. When Fisher wasn't on that team, they wasn't winning. Like, seriously. Like, when Fisher was not on that team, the Lakers usually either missed the playoffs or didn't win anything. All right? But when they got Fisher back after he spent this time in Utah, they went back to the NBA Finals twice. Like, and I'm not saying this because of Fisher, but having smart players, and I'm not saying Kobe wasn't, like, seriously, man, I don't want people to come at me, man. Like, I'm not saying Kobe wasn't a smart player. I'm just saying there are players that are far more intelligent on the floor than he was. Like, Kobe didn't have the leadership ability. Kobe didn't, like, if Kobe didn't have Phil Jackson and great players around him, he struggled. He didn't fit in with his teammates. His teammates didn't like him. He was incredibly hard on teammates. And I never, look, you don't have to be a dickhead to be an all-time great. I think that's the common misconception when it comes to Michael Jordan, is that because Michael Jordan was great because of his take no shit attitude. And I think that's what people try to apply to their games. And there's a lot of stories corroborating how much of a psychopath Michael Jordan was and the amount of mental damage he did to people. And I'm not just talking about the Muggsy Bogues thing, like the Kevin Garnett thing, like all that shit, man. Like, he was an incredibly, not spiteful, like, he was an incredibly dismissive person. Like, incredibly dismissive. And I think a lot of times Kobe tried to mirror that shit. And the thing about Kobe and the thing about Jordan was Jordan's ability on the floor. He had such a significant impact on the game that he could be a dickhead to his teammates and still go out there and will his team to a win. Kobe couldn't do that. Kobe needed a Phil Jackson. Kobe needed a big man. Kobe needed these pieces to be effective. I mean, before Phil Jackson got to Chicago, before, Scottie Pippen became Scottie Pippen, Jordan was still wreaking havoc on the NBA at a high level. He just wasn't winning because, lack of trust in his teammates. Sound familiar? But then when Phil Jackson came in, taught him the tools of the trade, I mean, that dude became the greatest basketball player we've ever seen. Kobe is not that. Kobe is he was an incredibly selfish basketball player. But is he a great player? Sure. Sure he was. He was better than a hell of a lot of other players. But, let's get to it.
Tony Allen.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Tony Allen. There's no way you're going to compare Tony Allen's ability to play perimeter defense to Draymond Green, who was as versatile and as impactful in the defense. Like, he won multiple championships as a very important piece to a championship organization. Tony Allen won a title in 2008 on the backs of a Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. So I don't want to hear that shit, man. Like, go somewhere.
So which one of those guys, Draymond Green, is better than? That's 19 guys.
You got 19?
That's 19.
Okay.
And I left off Mr. Russell. I left off Havlicek. I left off Clyde Frazier. And he says he's the greatest all time? But Draymond on Flocka.
People could say the same thing about LeBron James. LeBron James thinks he's the greatest player ever. When there's a huge community of people that won't even entertain that fucking... like, I will put fucking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar up there before I put fucking LeBron James. I'll put Magic up there. And people don't give Larry Bird enough respect, but I will put Larry above LeBron as well. I think LeBron built his career on stats and the love that his cult following has for him. All right, but I don't know. There are certain aspects to a player's game that would put them in that conversation. Now, you need the numbers. You need the stats. All right. You also need the titles. You also need the MVP, the awards. But I also think that your ability to, I don't know. Because Michael Jordan wasn't the greatest leader either. Now, he pushed the shit out of his teammates, But I think he was more, to be honest, man. I think he was more of a psychopath when it came to interacting with his teammates. So I don't know. Like, it is a criteria, man. Like, to be honest, man, I'm starting to move over to the camp of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was just phenomenal. I mean, this dude, to this day, nobody has surpassed his all-time scoring record. LeBron may do it if he played long enough, but so far he's still the all-time leading scorer. I mean, this dude, he lost one time in college. I mean, this dude is pro basketball royalty, not pro basketball period royalty. College, probably high school as well, man. Like, I mean, I'm in the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But back to what I was saying, like, there are people that consider LeBron, there are people that consider Kobe, there are people that consider Allen Iverson to be the greatest basketball player ever. Like, there are people that believe these ridiculous things. So how can we make snap judgments about Draymond Green and what he feels about himself? If he feels he's the greatest defender, who are we to say that he doesn't believe that, or he shouldn't believe that? I don't know, man. I think that he's the top 25 defender all time. He's closer to 10 than he is at 25 to 25.
He smoking that good stuff out here. He on Flocker. He crazy.
Here's what I think is going on with Draymond. It's the same thing that infected Steve Kerr the other night. It's spoiled rotten syndrome, where you dominated for so long as a franchise. You were such a dynasty that all of a sudden, when you fell back to earth and there's no more KD, and for now there's no Clay,
right,
and you're just another pretty good team.
Yes.
And Draymond's just another pretty good player.
Right.
You can't stand it anymore. Your pride is rubbed raw. Don't you remember me? Remember what I was?
Right.
Remember that series in 2016 when I got suspended? Everybody said I was the glue of the team, and they missed me so dearly in Game 5 back in Oracle.
Right.
Okay?
Which they did, man. The things that Draymond provides on the floor, you cannot have replicated by anybody else. He does about 3 or 4 different jobs. 3 or 4 different jobs on the floor that would take 3 or 4 different players to do. He does them by himself.
Did miss him.
Yes.
But does that make him top 20 all time? No. To your point, I think I can go to 25 pretty easily.
Well, see, you probably saw. I know you saw John Havlicek and Clyde Frazier.
The disrespect, man. The disrespect to this man's career. Sure, Draymond wasn't the greatest scorer. Sure, he wasn't the greatest three-point shooter. Like, and this is coming from two guys. Shannon Sharp, who is a diehard LeBron fan. Who had to endure those Golden State years where LeBron was getting his shit pushed in by the Golden State Warriors. And, you know, Skip Bayless, who's a diehard San Antonio Spurs fan, who is still bitter that they lost. They lost because Kawhi Leonard got hurt in the first game of the series where they were winning by 20 points. Kawhi went down with an injury because of Zaza Pachulia, and he has never let that go. He, from time to time, will still bring that shit up. If you mention Zaza to him, that's the first thing. Zaza Pacheep shot or some shit, or however he says it. Like, these are two bitter guys, man, who resented the Golden State run very much. And any chance they can to knock down Steph Curry, any chance they can to knock down Draymond Green, I think they will take shots. Any chance they could to knock down Kevin Durant. Now, Skip says Kevin Durant, he considers Kevin Durant to be the best player in the NBA now. But I think that's all a facade. He does it to get to Shannon. I don't think he believes it. I don't think he believes it at all. I think he just says it just to get under Shannon's skin. But any chance they can to take shots, they will.
I didn't, but they were better than he was.
I've seen a lot of Draymond Green, and there was a reason that he was the 5th pick in the second round, not in the first round, but in the second round. He's not an explosive athlete. He is highly skilled, and I think what he was trying to say in the clip we just saw, he does it with his mind even more than he does his body because he tries to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
And I give him high marks for that. But as far as dominating a game defensively,
I wouldn't say he dominates the game defensively. I would say there are things that he brings to the game that aided in Golden State winning their titles. Yes, there are things he's done defensively and offensively that aided in that run. And no one can deny that. Is Draymond Green a dominant player? No. Hell no. Nobody's saying that. But is he one of the greatest defenders we've ever seen as far as versatility and effort from a guy, like you just said, who's not athletic, not super athletic? He's 6'7", okay? He's undersized for his own position, but he can defend all 5 positions on the field at a very high level. I'm sorry. It's a no-brainer, man.
again, you're not even in the same breath. Let's just start with this fact. He has won one Defensive Player of the Year. Just one.
Yeah, all that award shit is politics. James Harden should have won at least 2 fucking MVP awards. Kevin Durant should have won another one. And I'm pretty sure LeBron, missed out on 1 or 2. Okay? Those awards are politics. Okay? Just like the All-Star Game selections. There's no way Damian Lillard, Mike Conley should have went as long as they did without getting an All-Star vote. There's no way they should have won as long as they had to go. And Mike Conley still didn't get to this day, has never been selected. Well, he might have been this year. To be honest, I haven't been watching basketball this year. He might have made it this year. But I don't think he did. No. I'm sorry. Those are the other 2 Utah players. All right, so he's never been to the All-Star game. And Mike Conley has been consistently a top 10 point guard in the NBA. Not recently, but like over the course of his career for like 6 or 7 years, man. As far as I can remember, man, like he's been productive as hell to go as unrecognized as he has been. And there are players, man. There are players that miss out. There are players that miss out because of politics, man. Look at fucking Kobe. Look at Dwayne Wade and Dirk Nowitzki when they got those final All-Star selections before they retired. Those are spots for other players who deserved it far more than they did. But because they are about to retire as some ceremonial thing, they took up spots from players who could have made that fucking team. So it's all politics, man. It's all politics. So saying that he's only won 1 Defensive Player of the Year award, it really holds no weight, man, because some of the better players don't win awards, man.
Okay, let's start with the fact that Dikembe and Ben Wallace won 4.
Right.
So right there, I don't. You put Dikembe in?
I put Dikembe in, yeah.
Okay, so that's 4. So no. Dwight Howard, all-time great, won 3 of these awards.
Consecutive.
Okay. Now let's go to 2-time winner.
Ben Wallace, although he didn't have the size, Ben Wallace was incredibly athletic. I mean, this dude had the athletic ability to play very high, like very high level of basketball on the defensive end. Dikembe Mutombo had the size. Dwight Howard had the size and the athleticism. But Draymond has none of those things. And he can still defend, like I'm going to keep saying, he can defend all 5 positions on the floor. Like that is impressive. That's far more impressive than a 6'11" Dwight Howard who can literally jump like a fucking shooting guard and who has the size to be able to make these plays, man. Come on, man.
We got Hakeem that you put in. Did you put Kawhi in?
I put Kawhi in.
Thank you. Alonzo Mourning won 2 of these.
I forgot Mourning.
Okay. He won 2. Rudy Gobert.
And you know what? The hardest part about defense in the NBA is that it's hard to quantify how important it is. It's hard to quantify how do you measure one defender versus another defender? The only way that you can do that, because blocks and steals, those don't tell the whole story. The only way you can do that is with the eye test. You know, maybe you can start keeping track of players' shooting percentages when they're covered by that player. You know, maybe you could do that. Maybe you can keep track of the defensive rebounds. You know, like maybe there are ways that you can make this shit comparable, but I mean, it's just different. You can't say that the Dikembe Mutombo, Dwight Howard, and all these guys are better than him, but you have no way of, you have no way of fairly judging each player based on what it is that they bring as far as stats go, because that's the best way to compare two people as far as a sport is with stats, and you can't do that on the defensive end. So I don't know. This conversation is more subjective. It's more of based on the person's opinion, I guess. But I'm done, man. Look, Draymond Green is one of the top 20, maybe top 25, maybe top 20 defenders we've ever seen. I mean, this dude's ability to be as utilized on the defensive end at any position that they need him to be. But he's also the team's secondary point guard. He's also that he was that team's leader, man. Like it or not, he was that team's leader. He was that heart and soul for the Golden State Warriors. Draymond was incredibly important to that team. But that's it, man. I'm done.